Congruent triangles. You have to kind of remember back when we talked about, this feels like a long time ago now, when we talked about congruent polygons or congruent shapes. And congruent means same size, same shape. Triangles are a little bit different with that because of the characteristics or the nature of triangles. Triangles have 3 sides and 3 angles within it. And so there's different ways that triangles can be congruent, and so we're going to look at that today. Again, lesson 89. Go ahead and follow with me. I'm just going to read through it first, and then I'll try to explain what it's actually talking about. So there are several ways of determining if 2 triangles are congruent. There's the side, side, side. 2 triangles are congruent if the sides of one triangle are congruent to the corresponding sides of the other triangle. And then we abbreviate that as SSS for side, side, side. Side, angle, side is the second one. 2 triangles are congruent if 2 sides and their included angle on one triangle are congruent to the corresponding 2 sides and their included angle of the other side. And this is side, angle, side, or SAS. Angle, side, angle is true. 2 triangles are congruent if 2 angles and their included side on one triangle are congruent to the corresponding 2 angles and their included side of the other triangle. So this one's angle, side, angle, or ASA. And then the fourth one is angle, angle, side. 2 triangles are congruent if 2 angles and an excluded side on one triangle are congruent to the corresponding 2 angles and excluded side of the other triangle, or angle, angle, side, or AAS. So there's a picture there. It says identify whether or not the pair of triangles is congruent based on the information given. But let's pause for a second and I'll show you what they mean by side, 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 angle, 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 ASA, all those things, okay? So just a second. Okay, so this is an example of side, 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 or SSS angle, congruent triangles. So if you have 3 sticks that are of different lengths or the same length, it doesn't really matter, you can form a triangle with those 3 sticks. Think of it as using pencils or using toothpicks. If I have 3 toothpicks that are, or in this case, you have 6 toothpicks that are the same size, I can make 2 triangles that are congruent because all of the sides are the same. Just a second, and I will attempt to show you another way to look at this. Okay, so bear with me. These markers are all the same height, size, okay? So see that? They're the same. So if I have 3 that are the same, I can form a triangle, maybe, of the 3, right? Okay, because these are all the same size, I can also make a second triangle, possibly, with the same length, and these triangles are going to be congruent because their sides are all the same. So again, sorry, hopefully you get that idea. But again, this is the side, you probably can't see that one. Side, 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 congruent triangle, okay? So some triangles are going to be congruent because their sides are the same length. Okay, the next one we're gonna look at is side, angle, side. So here's a better picture of how to explain that. I have a side here and a side and an angle in between the 2 sides. When you do this on your workbook, you're gonna see these lines and like different lines for the angles. This just means that one side is congruent to the other side. So if there's 1 slash, it matches the other 1 slash. If there's 2 slashes, it matches the same line with 2 slashes. The only way you could actually tell if you have a congruent angle is if you made the congruent angle and you measured it out and you said, this side is this many inches, this angle is so many degrees, this side is so many degrees. So they're just trying to tell you this angle is congruent without you having to measure it. And that's what a lot of the work today is going to be, really. But anyway, back to side, angle, side. Yeah. So this side is congruent to this side. And then because, again, the nature of a triangle, all you'd really have to do
because of the sides and the angle that are congruent, you could draw a line, which I do not know if I'll be able to do. You could draw a line, and because I always pick this one that doesn't work. Okay, you could draw a line, and because this side and this angle are congruent, it's most likely that this line will also be congruent because these are congruent, okay? So this one again is side, angle, side congruency, all right? Okay, here's your third one. This one is an angle, side, angle. And again, if your angles are congruent, which in this case are my symbols are telling me that they are congruent, if I were to finish the lines and draw the rest of this triangle, most likely, well, every time, the lines are going to be the same as long as these are congruent, all right? So again, this is angle, side, angle. Because of your angle 1 is congruent, A is congruent to C, B is congruent to D, and then my line is congruent to this line. So it's angle, side, angle. All right, and then the fourth one is angle, angle, side. So again, if I have an angle, and then at least one corresponding side to one of the angles, the other lines that I draw in are going to make these triangles congruent, okay? This one's gonna kind of go off because I made this too angled, but it's gonna eventually meet at the top, right? So angle F is congruent to angle C, angle A is congruent to angle D, and then B and E, we don't know, but we know that this line segment, EF and BC, are congruent because I have the slashes there. So again, this one is angle, angle, side, because there's an angle that's congruent, there's an angle that's congruent, and then one side that is congruent. So that's going to make the whole triangle congruent. So those are your different angles. Now let's look at the workbook. Okay, so back to your workbook page. Let's go back to this part right here. Probably don't look at it on the screen because you can't really see it on my page. But it asks again, identify whether or not the pair of triangles is congruent based on the information. So the information it's giving you is you have two triangles. This line and B are congruent. So you have to find where they match up. So it looks like A and D match up, DE and AB line segments are the same. And then there's another angle, which one? E and B are congruent too. So is this congruent or not? Well, I have an angle that's congruent, I have a side that's congruent, and I have an angle. That would mean it's angle, side, angle, right? So ASA. Moving on to this one. Identify whether or not the pair of triangles is congruent based on the information given. I tried to recreate this one on the board so that we can kind of look at it. Let's find one that works here. Okay, so we have our triangle ABC, and we have triangle DFE. We have two triangles. So I have an angle here and a congruent side, and then this angle, but I don't have a matching angle over here. So I can't have, so I have an angle that matches and a side that matches, but I don't have a third one, right? Because this is congruent to nothing, and then I have no other angles that are congruent as well. I can't have a angle side. But the closest I can get is this angle side, but I need a third one. So this one is not congruent based on the information I have. Congruent, because I don't have a second or a third side or angle that is congruent to each other. So these are considered not congruent. Another way of looking at this is that you can go, okay, so where's my triangle here? I have a angle, side, angle. So this one would be angle, side, angle. And then if I look at this one, I have side, angle, side. Because I have a side, an angle, and a side. But I know if I go, okay, are they the same?
No, they're not. You can write this by saying triangle ABC is not congruent to triangle, or not equal to, right? DEF. Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and look at activities, the number 2 underneath. So it's this part on your page, okay? It asks, identify whether or not the pair of triangles is congruent based on the information given. So I have an angle, a side, and an angle, and then an angle, side, and angle, okay? That does not necessarily mean they're congruent. Why? If you had measured them out and made them congruent, you would know that, but you're just assuming based on what the information is given to you that they are not congruent, because this side is not the same as this side because of the markings, all right? The markings would have to be the same, the exact same in order to do that. Notice too that I have this angle is this many, this angle is 2, this one is 3. So again, the sides are not matching up. You're really just matching shapes at this point, lines and dashes. So because they both are side, angle, side, doesn't necessarily mean it's congruent because they're different sides or angles in the triangle. So in this case, you would just write the triangles are not congruent. Okay, so the next part is I'm going to leave up to you to do more. Draw and label a pair of congruent triangles for each of the congruent patterns. So you can choose side, 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 pick how long, take a ruler and your protractor. You should have gotten a protractor in your packet. Take your protractor and decide, you won't need it for side, side, side necessarily. You're going to just decide how long each side is going to be for your side. So say you want an inch. Take your ruler, measure out an inch, and an inch. Don't just draw triangles, guys, because that's not the point of this. This isn't saying, let's practice drawing triangles, okay? You're hopefully past that point. The point of this is that showing that you can draw congruent triangles that are the same, all right? So then with your protractor, you're gonna need to pick how many degrees you want 2 of your angles, and then your line segment for side, angle, side. Side, angle, side, angle, you're gonna want your 2 angles and then your side. And then angle, angle, side, pick 2 angles and a side. But you're drawing 2 triangles completely. But 2 of your sides or 2 of your angles are going to be the same. The next part, draw a picture and solve. What is the length of each side of a square if the area is 121 square feet? So what they want you to do is just draw the shape. So they wanted you to draw a square. Go ahead and measure out. I have a protractor or a ruler right here. I'm gonna say, I'm just gonna do 2 inches for each side. Okay, I've drawn my square. And then it says that the area is equal to 121 in units or whatever, square units, right? So this is something that they didn't necessarily teach you, but you did it on that worksheet, okay? If you kind of have to think backwards, how do I get the area of a square? In a square, all my sides are the same length. So it's a side times side, or a side squared situation, all right? So you might need to grab your calculator, but you might know this one off the top of your head. What is the square root of 121? Well, I know that the square root of 100 would be 10. So let's just try 11 for the fun of it, because I know that's it. But 1 times 1, 1 times 1, 0, 1 times 1, 1 times 1. So 121, all right? So the square root of 121 is 11. That means that one of my sides is going to be 11, all right? Because if I take 11 times 11, I'm gonna get 121, all right? So that's how you figure that out. The next one is, what is the width of a rectangle if the perimeter is 28 centimeters and the length is 9 centimeters? So again, you'll want to draw the shape.